Samuel Johnson sat at his desk, reviewing the presentation one last time. After 7 years at Pinnacle Technologies, he had earned his position as head of product development. As one of the few black executives at the company, he felt extra pressure to perform perfectly, especially today. The meeting with GlobalSoft could change everything. The office buzzed with energy. Everyone knew about the potential $2.8 billion acquisition. If the deal went through, stock options would make even junior employees wealthy. Samuel closed his laptop and walked to the break room for coffee, nodding at team members along the way. "Big day," said Alicia Rogers, the marketing director. Her smile showed excitement mixed with nerves. "Very big," Samuel agreed, "but we're ready." Samuel had joined Pinnacle as a software engineer right after getting his MBA from Stanford. His technical skills and business knowledge helped him rise quickly, through the ranks. Now at 35, he led a team of 30 developers and designers creating cloud security solutions that had caught GlobalSoft's attention. Richard Winters, Pinnacle's CEO and founder, appeared in the doorway. At 58, Richard had the confident look of someone used to success. His silver hair and expensive suits projected authority. He had built Pinnacle from nothing into a 300-employee company over 12 years. "Samuel, my office now," Richard said, not waiting for an answer. Samuel followed Richard down the hallway, past glass-walled meeting rooms where employees prepared for the visitors. Richard's corner office offered views of downtown and the Bay. Beyond, awards and photos with famous business leaders covered one wall. "The GlobalSoft people will be here in 2 hours," Richard said, sitting behind his large desk. "Lisa Martinez is bringing her technical team and 2 board members." "We're ready," Samuel assured him. "My team has been working around the clock to make sure everything is perfect." Richard nodded but looked tense. This deal means everything to the company, to all of us. He didn't need to mention that his own payout would be over $500 million. "Understand," Samuel said. "The product demos will show them exactly why they should acquire us. Our security solutions are years ahead of the competition." "Good. And make sure your new hire, what's his name, Darnell, doesn't mess anything up. Is he really the best person to help with the technical presentation?" Samuel kept his expression neutral. "Darnell Williams is one of the most talented programmers I've ever worked with. He graduated top of his class from Georgia Tech and has already improved our core algorithms. I trust him completely." Richard waved his hand dismissively. "If you say so, just make sure everything goes perfectly." His phone rang, and he pointed to the door, signaling the meeting was over. Back at his desk, Samuel messaged Darnell to meet him in testing room 3. A few minutes later, Darnell arrived. At 24, he was the newest member of Samuel's team, hired just 3 months ago. Despite his youth, his technical skills had quickly earned respect from senior developers. "You wanted to see me?" Darnell asked, his voice confident but respectful. "Yes, let's go through the demo one more time," Samuel said. "The GlobalSoft people will be here soon, and this presentation could determine the future of the company." For the next hour, they rehearsed making small adjustments to the presentation flow. Darnell showed Samuel some improvements he had made to the security protocol visualization. "This is excellent," Samuel said, studying the screen. "It makes the complex parts much easier to understand." "Thanks. I stayed late working on it." "I know how important this meeting is." Samuel nodded appreciatively. He saw himself in Darnell, young, brilliant, and determined to prove himself in an industry where black professionals remained underrepresented. Samuel had made it a priority to mentor promising talent from diverse backgrounds, knowing firsthand the challenges they faced. "One more thing," Samuel said. "Richard seems particularly stressed about today. Just be prepared for some extra scrutiny." Darnell nodded. "I've noticed he can be intense." Samuel chose his words carefully. "Richard built this company from nothing. He's brilliant at business strategy, but sometimes his communication style is harsh, especially under pressure." What Samuel didn't say was that he had occasionally witnessed Richard's problematic attitudes, comments made in private meetings, questions about whether certain hires were qualified or just meeting diversity quotas. Samuel had always pushed back professionally, trying to educate rather than accuse. He believed changing the system from within required patience and strategic thinking. "I understand," Darnell said. "I'll be ready." The GlobalSoft representatives arrived exactly on time. Lisa Martinez, their vice president of acquisitions, led the group. She was known for her sharp intelligence and no-nonsense approach to business. With her were GlobalSoft's chief technology officer, 2 board members, and 3 technical experts. Samuel greeted them in the lobby, offering coffee and leading them to the main conference room where Richard waited. The introductions went smoothly, with Richard turning on his considerable charm. "We're thrilled you've shown interest in Pinnacle," Richard said. "We believe our technologies will integrate perfectly with GlobalSoft's ecosystem." Lisa smiled professionally. "We're impressed by what we've seen so far. Today we hope to get a deeper understanding of your technical infrastructure and team dynamics." Samuel noted her mention of team dynamics. During earlier meetings, Lisa had emphasized that GlobalSoft valued diverse and inclusive workplaces. She had specifically praised Pinnacle's improving diversity metrics, though Samuel knew the reality was more complicated than the numbers suggested. The morning proceeded with presentations from various department heads. After lunch, it was time for the technical demonstration. Samuel led the group to the product showcase room, where Darnell had set up the interactive displays. "Now we'll show you what truly sets Pinnacle apart," Samuel said. "Our next generation security protocol provides protection that adapts in real time to emerging threats. Darnell Williams, one of our top engineers, will walk you through how it works." Darnell stepped forward, poised and professional in his blue suit. "Thank you, Samuel. I'll demonstrate how our system identifies and neutralizes attacks that traditional security measures miss entirely." For the next 20 minutes, Darnell guided the group through the technology, explaining complex concepts in accessible terms. The GlobalSoft technical team asked challenging questions, which Darnell answered with impressive clarity. Samuel noticed Lisa Martinez nodding with interest, while the board members whispered to each other, seemingly impressed. Richard stood at the back of the room, his expression unreadable. As the demonstration continued successfully, Samuel felt his tension ease slightly. Everything was going perfectly. Then Darnell switched to the final section, showing the system responding to a simulated attack. He pulled up the visualization he had improved overnight, the one Samuel had praised earlier. "This view shows how our system creates dynamic barriers around sensitive data," Darnell explained. "When an attack is detected—" "Wait," Richard interrupted, stepping forward with a frown. "This isn't what we reviewed yesterday." A brief silence fell over the room. Samuel quickly interjected, "Darnell made some improvements to the visualization last night. It actually shows the process more clearly now." Richard's eyes narrowed as he looked from the screen to Darnell. The tension in the room suddenly thickened. Samuel could see Lisa Martinez watching the interaction carefully, her expression shifting from interest to concern. No one yet realized that this moment, this small change to a presentation, would soon spiral into a crisis that would destroy the $2.8 billion deal and change Pinnacle Technologies forever. The room grew quiet as Richard stared at the screen. His face had turned a shade redder. The GlobalSoft visitors shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the sudden tension. "May I continue?" Darnell asked politely, trying to move past the awkward moment. Richard ignored him and turned to Samuel. "Can I speak with you outside?" His voice was tight, controlled, but anger bubbled just beneath the surface. Samuel nodded calmly. "Darnell, why don't you answer any technical questions while we step out for a moment?" He smiled reassuringly at the GlobalSoft team. "We'll just be a minute." Once in the hallway, Richard's facade cracked. "What the hell is going on? That's not the presentation we approved." "Richard, Darnell made some improvements last night. The new visualization makes our system easier to understand. It's actually better than what we had before." "Better? Who decided it was better?" "I'm the CEO of this company, and I decide what gets shown to potential buyers." Richard's voice rose. Staff members walking by quickened their pace, eyes averted. Samuel kept his voice even. As head of product development, I approved the change. It was a minor improvement to help explain our technology more clearly. You should have consulted me first, Richard snapped. And why is he even leading this part? He's been here, 3 months? Darnell wrote most of the code for this feature. He understands it better than anyone. Richard's jaw tightened. I don't care if he wrote every line of code in the system. He's too new, too inexperienced to be the face of this company to a $2.8 billion client. Samuel studied Richard carefully, hearing what wasn't being said out loud. Darnell is highly qualified. His performance has been exceptional. Just go back in there and take over the presentation yourself, Richard ordered. That would look strange and unprofessional. It would raise questions with the Global Soft team. Samuel kept his voice reasonable. Darnell is doing an excellent job. The technical team is clearly impressed. Richard's nostrils flared. He looked like he wanted to say more, but instead turned and walked back into the room. Samuel followed, hoping the moment had passed. Inside, Darnell was answering a complex question from GlobalSoft's CTO about encryption methods. He handled it with confidence and expertise, drawing appreciative nods from the technical team. As I was explaining, Darnell continued when he saw Samuel and Richard return. When an attack is detected, our system creates these dynamic barriers. He pointed to the screen. That isolate sensitive data while still maintaining normal business operations. Richard interrupted again. Perhaps we should move on to the next section. His tone was sharp. Lisa Martinez, the GlobalSoft VP, raised an eyebrow. Actually, I'd like to hear more about this particular feature. It seems quite innovative. Richard's mouth tightened into a thin line. Samuel could see his boss's frustration growing by the second. This deal meant everything to Richard, the crowning achievement of his career and a massive personal payout. Darnell continued, unaware of the brewing storm. The key innovation is how we use machine learning to predict attack patterns before they fully develop. Here, let me show you with a real-world example. He clicked to the next screen, which showed how the system had stopped an actual cyber attack 3 weeks earlier. This was part of the approved presentation, but the visualization used the same improved format that had triggered Richard's earlier reaction. Richard stepped forward. This isn't what we rehearsed, he said loudly. The room fell silent again. Lisa Martinez and the GlobalSoft board members exchanged glances. Samuel tried to defuse the situation. It's the same content, just with an improved visual representation. I didn't approve any changes, Richard insisted, his voice getting louder. Who gave you permission to modify our presentation right before the most important meeting in this company's history? Darnell looked confused. I just updated the graphics to make the data flow clearer. The content is exactly the same. Well, it doesn't look the same to me, Richard said. And I'm tired of people making changes without proper approval channels. One of the GlobalSoft board members cleared his throat. Perhaps we could take a short break? No need, Richard said, waving his hand dismissively. Let's just move on to something that hasn't been tampered with. Samuel could see the damage, being done with every word. Lisa Martinez's expression had changed from interest to concern. Richard, Samuel said quietly, everything is going well. The GlobalSoft team seems impressed with our technology. But Richard wasn't listening anymore. The pressure of the acquisition, the months of preparation, and his own rigid need for control had created a perfect storm. And Darnell, unknowingly, had become the lightning rod. You know what? Richard said, his voice rising further. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of people coming in here thinking they know better than those of us who built this company from nothing. The room went completely silent. Even the usual office sounds seemed to disappear. Richard, Samuel warned, this isn't the time. No, this is exactly the time. Richard cut him off. He turned to Darnell. You've been here for 3 months and you think you can just change things without asking? Who do you think you are? Darnell stood perfectly still, his face a careful mask. Sir, I was just trying to improve the presentation. The changes are minor and only make our technology easier to understand. That's not your call to make, Richard shouted, fully losing his composure now. This is the problem with hiring people. Like you, all affirmative action and no respect for authority. Gasps echoed around the room. Lisa Martinez's mouth dropped open. The Global Soft CTO's eyes widened in shock. Samuel stepped between Richard and Darnell. That's completely inappropriate, Richard. You need to stop right now. Richard was too far gone. His face had turned dark red. Don't tell me what's inappropriate in my own company. This is exactly why I told HR to slow down on all these diversity hires. Always changing things, always thinking they know better. The silence in the room was deafening. Darnell stood frozen, his expression betraying a mixture of shock and deep hurt. Lisa Martinez stood up, gathering her tablet and notepad. I think we've seen enough for today. Her voice was cold. Wait, Richard said, suddenly realizing what was happening. Let's not overreact. This is just a small disagreement about presentation style. This is not about presentation style, Mr. Winters, Lisa said firmly. GlobalSoft values culture fit as much as technological innovation. She nodded to her team, who also began gathering their things. Samuel tried desperately to salvage the situation. Lisa, please. What Richard said was completely unacceptable, but it doesn't represent our company values. Lisa gave Samuel a sympathetic look. I believe you, Samuel, but what we just witnessed suggests otherwise about the leadership. She handed Samuel her business card. You can reach me directly if you'd like to discuss anything further. Within minutes, the GlobalSoft team had left the building. The room remained silent, with Pinnacle employees too stunned to speak. Richard stood in the center of the room, the realization of what he had done slowly dawning on his face. But instead of apologizing, he turned to Darnell. This is your fault, he said, his voice low and dangerous. If you had just followed the approved presentation, that's enough, Samuel said firmly. Darnell, please go to my office and wait for me there. After Darnell left, Samuel turned to Richard. What you just did may have destroyed this company's future. And worse, you revealed exactly what you think about diversity in this organization. You're overreacting, Richard muttered. They'll calm down. The technology is too good for them to walk away. Samuel shook his head. You don't understand what just happened, do you? This isn't just about technology. Lisa Martinez has been clear from the beginning that company culture is a major factor in their acquisition decisions. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Richard's face. They can't just walk away from a deal this size because of one heated moment. They can. And based on Lisa's reaction, they probably will. Samuel turned to leave, then stopped. And Richard? What you said to Darnell wasn't just unprofessional. It was racist, plain and simple. Samuel walked out, leaving Richard alone in the presentation room. In the hallway, employees whispered in small groups, the news already spreading throughout the company. The $2.8 billion acquisition, which had seemed so certain just an hour ago, now hung by the thinnest of threads, and it was about to snap completely. Samuel found Darnell sitting quietly in his office, staring out the window. When Samuel entered, Darnell turned to face him. His expression was calm, but his eyes revealed the hurt beneath. I'm sorry, Samuel said, closing the door behind him. What Richard said was completely unacceptable. Darnell nodded slowly. Has he always been like that? Samuel sat down across from Darnell, considering his words carefully. Richard has old-fashioned views. He usually keeps them hidden, especially in public settings. He paused. But I've seen glimpses before. And you still brought me into this company? There was no accusation in Darnell's voice, just genuine curiosity. I still believe, that change happens from within. Companies like Pinnacle need talented people like you. And most of the people here aren't like Richard. Samuel leaned forward. What he said today crossed every line. He won't get away with it. Darnell was quiet for a moment. Do you think the deal is dead? Probably, Samuel admitted. Lisa Martinez made it clear that company culture is as important to them as our technology. What Richard did today showed the worst possible culture. A knock at the door interrupted them Caroline Peters, Pinnacle's chief legal officer, entered without waiting for a response. Her expression was grave. "Samuel, we have an emergency executive meeting in 10 minutes. She turned to Darnell. "Mr. Williams, I want to personally apologize for what happened today. It was inexcusable." Darnell nodded. "Thank you," Caroline continued. "We'll need to speak with you later about the incident. As our legal counsel, I have to gather all the facts." After Caroline left, Darnell looked at Samuel. "I should go back to my desk. Are you sure you're okay?" "No," Darnell said honestly. "But I need some time to think." Samuel understood. "Take the rest of the day off if you need to. And Darnell, what happened today wasn't your fault. Not in any way." As Darnell left, Samuel's phone buzzed with a message from Alicia in marketing. "News is spreading fast. Everyone's talking about what Richard said." Samuel wasn't surprised. In an open office with glass-walled meeting rooms, there had been plenty of witnesses to Richard's outburst. By now, most of the company probably knew. When Samuel entered the executive conference room, the tension was palpable. Richard sat at the head of the table, his face set in stubborn lines. The other executives, Caroline, Chief Financial Officer Greg Porter, Chief Operating Officer Paul Barnes, and Head of Human Resources Ellen Wright, looked grim. Caroline spoke first. "I've just gotten off the phone with Lisa Martinez. GlobalSoft has officially withdrawn from acquisition talks." The room fell silent. $2.8 billion gone in an instant. Greg Porter, always focused on numbers, broke the silence. "Is there any way to salvage this? We're talking about billions of dollars." "Not with GlobalSoft," Caroline said firmly. Lisa was clear that their decision is final. "This is ridiculous," Richard said, pounding his fist on the table. "They're walking away from the best security technology on the market because of one heated moment?" Ellen from HR spoke up. "Richard, what you said today wasn't just a heated moment. It was textbook workplace discrimination. We're lucky if all we lose is the acquisition." Richard turned to her, eyes narrowing. "What does that mean?" Caroline answered instead. "It means we could be facing serious legal issues. Discrimination suits, hostile workplace environment claims." She turned to Ellen. "Have there been other complaints?" Ellen looked uncomfortable. "There have been concerns raised over the years. Nothing as explicit as today's incident." "And you never told me?" Richard demanded. "They were handled according to company policy," Ellen said carefully. "Meaning they were buried," Samuel said, the pieces falling into place. "How many complaints, Ellen?" Ellen hesitated, then sighed. 17 in the past 5 years. Mostly related to comments made in private meetings or during performance reviews. The room grew quiet again as the implications sank in. "Why wasn't I informed about these?" Samuel asked. As head of product development, he should have known about complaints from his department. "Most weren't formal written complaints," Ellen explained. "People were afraid to put things in writing. They would come to HR, express concerns, but then say they didn't want to pursue it further. Because they feared retaliation," Caroline concluded. She turned to Richard. "This isn't just about losing the acquisition. The company is exposed to significant liability now." Richard stood up suddenly. "This is absurd. I built this company from nothing. I've created hundreds of jobs. I've made millionaires out of people who would otherwise be coding in some basement. And now you're all turning on me because of one comment?" "It wasn't one comment," Samuel said quietly but firmly. "What you said to Darnell revealed a pattern of thinking, and according to Ellen, there have been 17 other incidents that support that pattern." "We need to get ahead of this," Caroline said. "I recommend an immediate company-wide statement condemning what happened, a formal apology to Darnell, Williams, and the announcement of new diversity and inclusion initiatives." Richard laughed bitterly. "So now I have to apologize for speaking my mind in my own company?" The room went silent again. Even Richard's usual allies looked uncomfortable. Paul, Barnes, the COO and Richard's friend for 20 years, finally spoke. "Richard, you need to understand how serious this is. What you said today wasn't just offensive, it could destroy everything we've built." "Fine," Richard snapped. "Draft whatever statement you want, I'll sign it. It's not that simple, Caroline said. The board will need to be informed. They may want to take additional actions. Richard's face darkened. Are you threatening me? I'm doing my job as legal counsel, Caroline replied calmly, which is to protect this company, even from its founder if necessary. The meeting ended with a plan to draft statements and schedule an emergency board meeting. As everyone filed out, Samuel remained behind with Richard. You really don't get it, do you? Samuel asked. Richard didn't look at him. Get what? That everyone suddenly becomes so sensitive that a single remark can destroy a billion-dollar deal? It wasn't a single remark. It was a clear expression of prejudice against black employees. You said the quiet part out loud, Richard. You said what you've apparently been thinking all along. Richard finally looked at him. I've always supported you, Samuel. Have you? Or have you just tolerated me because I deliver results? Samuel stood to leave. The sad thing is, I actually believed in this company. I believed we were building something that mattered. Now I have to decide if that's still true. As Samuel walked back to his office, employees watched him pass, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. News traveled fast in tech companies, and Pinnacle was no exception. By now, everyone knew what had happened in the meeting room. Samuel's phone buzzed again. A message from Darnell. I've been thinking about what happened. Can we talk tomorrow? I need to make some decisions. Samuel replied immediately. Of course. My office, 9 a.m. The response came quickly. See you then. Samuel sat at his desk, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. The company he had helped build, the place where he had invested 7 years of his life, suddenly felt like a house with a crumbling foundation. Could it be saved? Should it be saved? His phone buzzed once more. This time it was Lisa Martinez, from GlobalSoft. Samuel, I'm sorry about how things ended today. If you ever consider other opportunities, please call me directly. Samuel set the phone down without replying. Tomorrow would bring difficult conversations and hard choices. The comfortable path forward he had imagined, rising through Pinnacle's ranks, perhaps becoming CEO one day, had vanished in an instant. Now he faced a crossroads, not just for his career, but for his principles. Outside his office, the day continued. Some employees worked quietly at their desks, while others gathered in small groups, whispering about what they had heard. The future of Pinnacle Technologies hung in the balance, all because one man had finally revealed what he truly thought about the color of another man's skin. The next morning, Pinnacle's offices felt different. People spoke in hushed voices. Some desks sat empty. Employees had called in sick or suddenly needed to work from home. The company stock had dropped 15% overnight as rumors about the failed acquisition spread through industry channels. Samuel arrived early before most employees. He needed quiet time to think before his meeting with Darnell. As he walked through the office, he noticed an email from Caroline, sent to all staff at 6:30 a.m. All hands meeting at 11 a.m. today. Attendance mandatory. At 9 o'clock, Darnell knocked on Samuel's office door. He looked tired but composed. Come in, Samuel said. How are you holding up? Darnell sat down. Not great. I didn't sleep much. He placed a folder on Samuel's desk. I've been thinking about my options. Samuel's heart sank. You're considering leaving? Yes, Darnell admitted. But I'm not sure it's the right move. He leaned forward. I've received 3 job offers since yesterday afternoon. 3? Samuel was surprised but not shocked. Word traveled fast in the tech world, and a talented engineer like Darnell would be in high demand. News about what happened spread quickly. I got calls from people I've worked with before, asking if I wanted out. Darnell opened the folder, showing emails from competitors. Good positions, more money. Samuel nodded slowly. I wouldn't blame you for taking one of them. Before I decide, I need to know something, Darnell said, his eyes meeting Samuel's, directly. Did you know? About Richard, I mean. About how he really feels. Samuel took a deep breath. This was the question he'd been asking himself all night. I knew he had old-fashioned views. I heard comments over the years that made me uncomfortable, but nothing as explicit as yesterday. He paused. I thought I could change things from within. I believed the company was bigger than one person's prejudice, even when that person is the CEO. Especially then, Samuel said. Richard is 60 years old. Eventually he'll retire. The next generation of leadership could be different. You mean you, Darnell said. Samuel shrugged. Maybe. That was the plan anyway. And now? Before Samuel could answer, his phone buzzed. A message from Ellen in HR. Board called emergency. Meeting. Started 30 minutes ago. Richard is fighting hard. Samuel showed the message to Darnell. The board of directors is meeting right now. Whatever happens in that room will determine the future of this company. Darnell nodded. So your advice is to wait and see? My advice? Samuel hesitated. My advice is to do what's right for you, not for me, not for Pinnacle, but for yourself. What about you? Darnell asked. Are you staying? It was the question Samuel had wrestled with all night. I don't know yet. I've put 7 years of my life into this place. That's not easy to walk away from. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock. Alicia from marketing stood in the doorway, her face pale. You both need to see this. She handed Samuel her tablet. On the screen was a tech news website with the headline, Prejudiced Kills Deal. Pinnacle CEO's Racist Rant Tanks 2.8B Acquisition. The article quoted anonymous sources describing Richard's outburst in detail. It mentioned the affirmative action comment and reported that GlobalSoft had immediately withdrawn from talks after the incident. It's everywhere, Alicia said. Every tech blog, LinkedIn, Twitter. Our PR team is being flooded with calls. Samuel handed the tablet back. Thanks for letting us know. After Alicia left, Darnell shook his head. This just got a lot bigger than me or Pinnacle. Yes, Samuel agreed. Now it's about the whole tech industry, about who we are and what we stand for. At 11 o'clock, employees gathered in the large meeting space. The mood was tense. Caroline stood at the front, along with Paul and Greg. Richard was nowhere to be seen. Caroline addressed the room. Thank you all for coming. As many of you know, yesterday there was an incident during our meeting with GlobalSoft. As a result, the acquisition is no longer moving forward. Murmurs spread through the crowd. More importantly, Caroline continued, comments were made that do not reflect the values of Pinnacle Technologies. We want to be absolutely clear. Discrimination of any kind is not tolerated here. Samuel and Darnell stood at the back of the room, watching carefully. The board of directors met this morning to address this situation, Caroline said. After careful consideration, they have made the decision to place CEO Richard Winters on administrative leave, effective immediately. The room erupted in whispers and gasps. During this time, COO Paul Barnes will serve as acting CEO. The board will conduct a thorough investigation into yesterday's incident and any past issues that may have been raised. Samuel felt dozens of eyes turned toward him and Darnell. People were wondering what they would do next. Caroline raised her hands for quiet. We understand you have questions. We'll address them as best we can. But first, I want to introduce Jeff Mason, the chairman of our board. A tall man in his 60s walked to the front. His expression was serious. Yesterday's events were deeply troubling. They do not represent what Pinnacle stands for, but they do show that we have work to do. He looked around the room. We've built world-class technology here. Now we need to build a world-class culture to match it. That starts today. After the meeting, employees gathered in small groups, discussing the news. Richard Winters, the founder and face of Pinnacle for 12 years, was gone, at least temporarily. No one knew if he would ever return. Samuel's phone buzzed with a message from Jeff Mason. My office in 15 minutes. Bring Darnell if he's willing. Samuel showed the message to Darnell. Your choice. Darnell thought for a moment. I'll come. I want to hear what he has to say. Jeff Mason's temporary office was smaller than Richard's but still had a view of the bay. He greeted them warmly, apologizing again for what had happened. "I want to be direct with both of you," Jeff said once they were seated. "The board is seriously considering making Richard's leave permanent." Samuel was surprised by the candor. "That's a big step." "Yes, but maybe one that's overdue," Jeff replied. "What happened yesterday opened our eyes to problems we should have addressed sooner." He turned to Darnell. "Mr. Williams, on behalf of the board and the company, I want to personally apologize. What Richard said was inexcusable." Darnell nodded. "Thank you," Jeff continued. "I understand you've received job offers from other companies. That's not surprising. But before you decide, I want you to know that changes are coming to Pinnacle." "What kind of changes?" Darnell asked. "Real ones," Jeff said firmly. "A complete review of HR practices, mandatory training for all employees, a diverse hiring initiative with real teeth, and most importantly, a clear message from the top that what happened yesterday will never happen again." He turned to Samuel. "We need leaders who understand both our technology and our values, people who can guide Pinnacle into its next chapter." The implication was clear. With Richard gone, opportunities would open up, possibly the CEO position itself. Samuel looked at Darnell, wondering what he was thinking. The young engineer's decision to stay or go would be a powerful signal to the rest of the company. "I appreciate your words," Darnell said carefully, "but I need to see actions. Real change isn't just about one person leaving. It's about the culture you build after they're gone." Jeff nodded. "You're absolutely right. That's why we'd like both of you to help shape what comes next." As they left Jeff's office, Samuel felt a mixture of emotions. Anger at what had happened, uncertainty about the future, but also a glimmer of hope. Perhaps some good could come from this after all. "Have you decided?" he asked Darnell as they walked back toward their desks. "Not yet," Darnell replied, "but I'm thinking that running away from problems doesn't solve them. Maybe the real opportunity here is to help build something better." Samuel smiled slightly. "That's exactly what I was thinking." Outside the windows, the sun broke through the morning fog, illuminating the bay. Inside Pinnacle Technologies, the future remained uncertain. But for the first time since Richard's outburst, Samuel felt that maybe, just maybe, that future could be brighter than the past. 3 months passed, summer turned to fall, and the tech world moved on to new scandals and success stories. But at Pinnacle Technologies, the changes sparked by Richard's outburst continued to unfold. Samuel stood at the window of his new office, the corner office that had once belonged to Richard Winters. The view of the bay was the same, but much else had changed. The wall of photos with famous business leaders was gone, replaced by a simple mission statement: "Innovation with integrity. Technology that unites." A knock at the door broke his thoughts. Darnell entered, holding a tablet. "The final numbers from the third quarter," Darnell said, handing over the tablet. "Better than expected." Samuel reviewed the data. After the failed acquisition, Pinnacle's stock had dropped nearly 30%. Many had predicted the company wouldn't survive. But over the past 3 months, they had slowly rebuilt, focusing on their core products and healing their damaged reputation. "We're still down from where we were before," Samuel noted, "but the trend is positive. And the new diversity initiatives are getting attention," Darnell added. 3 tech blogs mentioned us as an example of a company making real changes, not just talking about them. The board's investigation had revealed more than just Richard's prejudice. It uncovered systematic problems in how complaints were handled, who got promoted, and how decisions were made. The changes that followed were substantial: a completely new HR department, mandatory training for all employees, and a commitment to transparent reporting on diversity metrics. Most significantly, 2 weeks after being placed on leave, Richard Winters had resigned as CEO. The official statement cited personal reasons, but everyone knew the truth. The board had made it clear he could resign or be fired. Samuel had been named the new CEO, the first black CEO in the company's history. Darnell had stayed too, accepting a promotion to lead a new innovation team focused on the next generation of security products. Have you seen the email from Lisa Martinez? Darnell asked. Samuel nodded. GlobalSoft had reached out again, not for an acquisition this time, but for a possible partnership on specific projects. Do you think we should pursue it? I do, Darnell said. It would send a strong message that we've changed and that we're still a player in this industry. Samuel agreed. Set up a call with her team. But let's be clear that we're not looking to be acquired right now. After Darnell left, Samuel reviewed his calendar for the day. The most important item was a lunch meeting with Jeff Mason, the board chairman who had become a valued mentor over the past months. They met at a small restaurant near the office. After ordering, Jeff got straight to business. The board is pleased with the progress, he said. When all this happened, some members wanted to sell the company for whatever we could get. But you've turned things around faster than anyone expected. We still have a long way to go, Samuel replied. Yes, but you're on the right path. Jeff paused. Have you heard from Richard? Samuel shook his head. After his resignation, Richard had disappeared from public view. Rumors said he had moved to his vacation home in Hawaii. Some of the old guard still think we were too harsh on him, Jeff admitted. They say one bad moment shouldn't erase 12 years of building a successful company. It wasn't one moment, Samuel said quietly. It was a pattern that finally became visible to everyone. The 17 complaints Ellen found were just the ones that reached HR. How many others stayed silent out of fear? Jeff nodded. I know. I should have seen it sooner. We all should have. Their food arrived and they moved on to more positive topics. The new products in development, the improved workplace culture, the fact that employee retention had actually increased after the initial wave of resignations. Back at the office, Samuel found Alicia waiting for him. As the new chief marketing officer, she had been instrumental in rebuilding Pinnacle's image. I just got a call from that reporter at Tech Daily, she said. They want to do a feature story on our turnaround. They're calling it Rising from the Ashes, how Pinnacle Technologies transformed a crisis into opportunity. Samuel considered this. They had declined most press requests in the early days, focusing on internal changes rather than public relations, but maybe now was the time to tell their story. What do you think? He asked Alicia. I think we should do it, she replied. Not to brag, but to show other companies that meaningful change is possible, that doing the right thing can also be good business. Samuel agreed. Set it up. But make sure they talk to people throughout the company, not just leadership. Later that afternoon, Samuel led the monthly all-hands meeting. Unlike the tense gathering 3 months ago, this one had a different energy. People asked questions openly. They shared ideas. They laughed. Before we wrap up, Samuel said toward the end, I want to take a moment to reflect on how far we've come. When I became CEO, many people thought Pinnacle was finished. They said we'd never recover from losing the GlobalSoft deal. Murmurs of agreement spread through the room. But what they didn't understand was that we gained something more valuable than a $2.8 billion acquisition. We gained clarity about who we are and who we want to be. We confronted uncomfortable truths and committed to real change. Samuel looked around at the faces watching him. Diverse faces from many backgrounds, all part of the same team. The technology we build matters, but the culture we create matters just as much, and I'm proud of the culture we're building together. After the meeting, Samuel returned to his office to find Darnell waiting with unexpected news. GlobalSoft just announced they're acquiring TechShield for $3.1 billion, Darnell said, referring to one of Pinnacle's main competitors. Samuel took a moment to process this. The deal that had slipped through their fingers had gone to a rival. In another time, this would have felt like a devastating blow. Are you okay? Darnell asked, noticing Samuel's expression. Samuel smiled slightly. You know what? I am. That could have been us. Should have been us. But we weren't ready. Not as a company, not as a culture. And now we build something better, something that can stand on its own. As the workday ended, Samuel walked through the office, observing the changes both visible and invisible. New faces among the staff. New artwork on the walls. New energy in the conversations. Outside in the parking lot, he spotted Greg, the CFO, talking with Paul, the former COO who had returned to his original role after Samuel became CEO. "Heading out?" Greg called. Samuel nodded. "Big day tomorrow. First meeting with GlobalSoft about the partnership." "They'd be foolish not to work with us," Paul said confidently. "Our tech is still better than TechShield's, acquisition or not." Samuel agreed. "But our advantage isn't just technology anymore. It's who we are." Driving home, Samuel reflected on the journey of the past 3 months. The crisis had nearly destroyed Pinnacle, but it had also created an opportunity for transformation. Like the phoenix in the Tech Daily headline, they were rising from the ashes, different but stronger. His phone buzzed with a text from Darnell. "Just heard back from Lisa Martinez. She's looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. Says GlobalSoft is impressed by the changes we've made." Samuel smiled. The $2.8 billion acquisition was gone forever. But what had replaced it, a company committed to both innovation and integrity, was ultimately more valuable. Sometimes losing everything was the only way to build something better. And though the path had been painful, Samuel wouldn't have changed it. Pinnacle Technologies was no longer Richard Winter's company. It belonged to all of them now, and its future was brighter than ever before.